Really quite amazing because during that year time, not only did we manage to pay all of our bills, keep our family afloat, but we also paid off over $60,000 worth of debt just from flipping furniture. How many times have you seen a really cool couch, a really neat shape? It's, bright red, a real statement piece for a room. And you may say, I really want that. That'll sell really well. I can get a whole lot of money for that. But how long are you going to sit on that red couch until the right person comes along that can actually fit that into their style and their decor?
So could you tell us a little bit more about where you're finding the best pieces for your business?
Yeah, I love...
Do you dream of being the undisputed top couch flipper in your market? Hard work alone won't get you there. The secret? Working smarter, not just harder. Enter Ivy Flip. You're listening to our podcast to get the cutting edge when it comes to tactics for running your flipping business. So why not also have the cutting edge when it comes to technology for your couch flipping empire? Ivy Flip has the best sourcing app for couch flippers in the world. With Ivy Flip, you won't have anxiety about missing a couch deal. We will work 24 hours a day to notify you as soon as the deals you're after are posted, meaning you'll get there before your competition and with a fraction of the effort. And right now, we are offering a 1-week free trial to new users. Try it out before it's too late. Just search Ivy Flip in the iOS App Store or the Google Play Store now, or click the link in bio.
Okay, joining us on this episode of the Couch Pod, we have Kara from Dallas, Texas. Kara, thank you so much for spending the time and joining us to speak to our audience. If you could give us a little bit of background about yourself, I think we'd all appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for having me and just asking me to come on the show. It's always an honor to share a little bit of our story and hopefully encourage others and just give them ideas on how to create a lucrative side hustle, which is what I've been able to do. So my company is called Lemons to Lemonade Furniture. I have a YouTube channel that I just absolutely love to connect with people on, and all the other socials as well. So you can find me under Lemons to Lemonade Furniture on all of those places. But so my story really began back in COVID, back in 2020. I have no background in this type of thing whatsoever. My background is actually in the medical field, the business side of medical. So this is way out of my comfort zone. It was really just started to be a thing out of straight necessity. My husband was one of the first to lose his job in 2020. He worked in events. So when events stopped happening, money stopped coming in. So we were left with quite a dilemma and a scary situation to where we had just bought a house that we absolutely loved. We have 2 kids and a mountain of medical debt that we couldn't pay. So when he lost his job, I just decided I've got to do something to try to supplement our income. So I went out to the garage and I started flipping furniture. Like I said, I don't have a background in this whatsoever, so it was a lot of trial and error. But during that time, it was really interesting that people were locked in their houses, all of us were, and people started looking around at their 4 walls and they were really bored with what they saw and they wanted to start sprucing things up and changing things around. And that's where I really hit a boon, because whatever I was making, people were buying it. Like, it was just flying off of the shelves. I couldn't keep anything in stock. About 3 months into it, I looked up and was like, oh my goodness, we're onto something here. So it was really quite amazing because during that year time, not only did we manage to pay all of our bills, keep our family afloat, but we also paid off over $60,000 worth of debt just from flipping furniture.
That's an amazing story. And I've talked to a few people now who did get their start during the pandemic, and there's absolutely some market surge that happened during 2020, 2021. I think the reasons were very well, you articulated the reasons for that very well. How do you feel about the furniture flipping markets post-pandemic and how things have been shaped maybe by that time period?
Sure. I think for me, it's still going really strong, but I also know that I am living in one of the areas that a lot of people are moving into. So I have been really fortunate. I think a lot of things just really lined up with that. Number one, during the pandemic, I was able to crank out so much furniture that I really built a name for myself within this area. I do live in the Dallas Metroplex, which is one of the, top 3 heaviest moved into areas in the country right now and during that time. So we had a massive influx of people, and especially, I think just now furniture stores are starting to catch up with the demand, but especially these last 2 years, if you went into a store and you wanted a piece of furniture, you could buy it, but you had to wait 6 to 8 months for that thing to be delivered. And people don't want to wait, as we know. Like, we're so guilty of that drive-through culture. Like, we want it right now when we see it. So that has really helped my business because people know that they can go on Facebook Marketplace, they can look for things. I boost my posts, I do things like that so that my things appear at the top, and they don't have to wait 6 months to get it. They can drive over to my garage and pick it up anytime they want. So that really helps just create the excitement and also just building my name. There's a lot of repeat customers that I have that come back for more things because they like the quality that we're putting out. So that's just the area that I live in has helped tremendously. I know that a lot of people can't say that, but I still think there's still a really good demand for furniture because you're still up against companies not being able to provide that item right away in a lot of cases.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So in the pandemic, the thing that was driving demand was maybe sheer boredom. And then now that people are mobile again, and Texas is obviously one of these areas where there's a huge influx of people. I won't get into the reasons for that, but
yeah.
And you've noticed that the fact that your furniture is almost on demand, it's pre-assembled, it's already out of the box, right?
Right.
Gives you a competitive edge over new furniture stores. And I've talked to a lot of flippers. Most flippers don't make that comparison between like what the products that they're offering and the products that new furniture businesses are offering. They're typically competing amidst each other. So it's like my competition are other flippers of used furniture, whereas your thought process is different in that you're like, I'm actually competing with these big box retailers. What can I do that they can't?
Yes.
It's a very interesting mindset. Yeah, in Dallas, as far as we know, based on like our internal analytics, one of the biggest flipping markets in the United States, at least for couches. We see an extremely high volume of couches being posted there, and we have a high concentration of our users based out in Dallas as well. So to us, it's one of the biggest flipping markets, which sort of coheres with your intuition about there are a lot of people moving in, which I think is part of what drives the demand for new furniture, or not new furniture, but like furniture in general, right?
Yeah.
And we live today in a tenancy-based society compared to, people owning their own homes. So there's a lot of this, in and out movement, which I think leads to the demand for furniture. People, leaving their apartments, they have stuff that they don't want to bring with them. And people moving into those apartments, needing to furnish those apartments entirely new, it creates a lot of this demand, which is a very interesting effect that we've seen. Now, if I'm a couch flipper and I want to start incorporating different types of furniture into my game, give me some of the upside. What do you think, like a couch flipper could accomplish in terms of profits if they were to add this dimension to what they were doing?
Sure. I think that's a really great question, and that couch flippers really shouldn't be scared or timid to break into this market. Now, I understand what I do has more of a creative side to it because I'm painting the furniture or basically giving it a whole new look. But there is a whole nother side to this side hustle that doesn't include any of that creative side whatsoever. The average flipper can go to an estate sale or a garage sale or what have you and just look for high quality furniture pieces. A lot of times these days, I find in this particular market, they're not really looking for the cheap come and go, doesn't last very long MDF particle board type furniture. People really like that high quality, solid wood. It's in good shape. Maybe it looks a little older. Those older vintage pieces definitely have places in people's homes these days. They're coming back in style. So don't be afraid to pick up a piece or two and give it a good clean. Make sure all the drawers are clean and look nice and resell that. That has a great resale value to it. And again, for all the reasons that we already covered, like there is not immediate gratification most of the time from these bigger box furniture stores, or the bigger box furniture stores aren't carrying this type of quality furniture that we saw throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s, where we had all this solid wood. Now we're into the cheaper types of building materials, and a lot of people don't want that because they don't hold up well. So there is a really good market to just buy that piece of furniture, clean it up really well, and just resell it get some nice looking staging photos, and then just sell that right along with the couches that you're already flipping. It doesn't have to be that difficult where you're looking at painting it or, giving it a whole new look. If you want to try that, that's awesome. Go for it. But don't be intimidated that you can't pick up those pieces that you're drawn to because you think you're not a furniture flipper.
Yeah, I think you touched on something really important, which is a big part of the value that flippers are bringing into the local logistics environment. So the way our supply chain has changed is that back in the day, it made sense to invest in building these, quality furniture pieces, and then the distribution of which could take a couple months. But, people are living in one place for a long time and they wanted to invest in that quality. But with the rise in tenancy, people moving in and out more frequently, it's like I need something more convenient that can be shipped to me, and I'm going to build it myself. But that has led to this influx of low quality furniture. And there are tons of these quality pieces that just end up in the dump if there wasn't someone willing to go put their labor into the equation and make it accessible to that next person. And I think this is why there is actually a huge market for the services that flippers provide. In that, otherwise that piece of furniture might end up in the dump, and otherwise that piece of furniture might not be available for the next person who wants it because people just don't have the means to move around these big bulky pieces of furniture. And they're adding their value. They're adding value as well through the refurbishment and the cleaning and the presentation of that next piece to the next customer. People want to feel good about what they're buying. They don't necessarily want to know all the details of where this couch came from or where this vintage wood piece has been sitting. They just want something that looks good and they can imagine complementing their home. Now, what are some of the top pieces that you look for if you were going to go for a quick flip? Something that you wouldn't have to refurbish too much or paint, because I think that's the area that our flippers are probably the most afraid of.
Sure. And that's a really easy question, actually. It just goes right in line with what always sells best for me. And I find this to be true in a lot of people that flip furniture in any sense of the style, whether they're just getting it and reselling it or whether they're doing like I do and they're taking it in and they're painting it and making it look different. But the three top items that are in highest demand are, number one, dressers. A dresser that has plenty of storage and still looks like it has lots of good use to it is the number one thing to look for and grab. The second thing that sells really well that you do not have to worry about, turning it into something different are nightstands, a set of nightstands. Don't buy an individual nightstand. You will sit on that forever. There are very few people that are looking for just one nightstand, but a set of nightstands will sell really, really quickly. If you can just clean it up, take some nice staging pictures, you'll be surprised how quickly that'll fly out the door. And then the third thing that sells really well for me are buffets or media cabinets. So, and that can be in any shape or form. A lot of times people are using dressers for media cabinets these days because no longer do we have the big armoires that our TVs fit into, right? So our TVs have now outgrown those. So armoires do not sell whatsoever. I do not care how beautiful it is. Do not pick up an armoire. It is not going to move. The best thing is to find a nice media cabinet. There's plenty of them for sale on Facebook Marketplace that could just use a nice clean and then restage it and then sell it. So those are most definitely my top three sellers. Good dressers with lots of storage space, a set of nightstands, and then something that can be used as a media cabinet or a buffet for a dining room. Those are the top three things that I'm always after that sell the best and the quickest for me.
What is a telltale sign that a piece is quality versus low quality as you assess whether or not you should be picking up this furniture?
That is an excellent question. And a lot of people in the beginning will ask that because until you're used to looking at this stuff, you don't know what you're looking at. And that's very true with furniture. So one of the things I do is a lot of people will describe in the listing that it's solid wood. They don't know what solid wood is. And that's not to pick on anybody. I started out in the exact same boat. I would have told you something was solid wood and it wasn't. So normally you can tell by the age. The more you do this, you can tell if something is vintage or, you can look at the style of something particularly furniture, and probably get a good idea of the time period that that was made in, right? I mean, 80s furniture has telltale signs. You can look at something and be like, whoa, I haven't seen that in a really long time. So those are the type of things automatically that make you think this is probably a higher quality furniture, because you can tell that it wasn't built in the last 10 years or last 20 years. The other thing that I'll ask people if I'm just not sure is if you are talking to this person on Facebook Marketplace and you ask them to take a picture of behind the furniture, right on that little lip behind, when you go around the corner, you can see sort of like the layers of what that thing is made out of. So solid wood, obviously it's really easy to tell. You're going to see the graining of the wood and things like that. Whereas if you've got a piece of veneer with some particle board, you're going to see that kind of sandwichy look behind there that looks like it's all, just shreds of paper or whatever, just stacked and glued on top of each other. So you can obviously tell, oh, okay, this is not solid wood. This has got a piece of veneer with particle board underneath it. And then I kind of feel like I don't want to pick on IKEA furniture, but we all sort of know what that IKEA furniture looks like. So you automatically know this is not solid wood. This is something that's more made out of plastic materials or things like that. So, and that stuff does sell, but also just remember that it has a low shelf life. It's not going to last very long. So the price that you're going to be able to get on that might not be as high if you picked up a dresser that looked, similar storage, similar size, things like that.
Yeah, I think this is really important information for our flippers, because I think the whole reason there's even a flipping market is because the business model has been elucidated for couch flippers. So they join these groups, they follow along with this podcast, and they figure out like, okay, these types of couches, these types of sectionals, I can buy in the range of like $100 to $500. And then if I, do a good job cleaning it and presenting it, I can probably turn it around and flip it for a $500 profit, $1,000 profit, all the way up to like a $2,000 profit. And so they just know what to look for and know how much they can expect to sell these things for. And one of the most common questions that you see among couch flippers is like, hey, have you purchased this thing before? And if you did, how much did you buy it for? Should I buy this? How much do you think I should list it for? And really what they're asking is, can you de-risk this for me? Right? Can you use your experience dealing with something similar to tell me if I can make money on it? Whereas, if you haven't done that trial and error before, it's a valid question to ask. And I think that's exactly what this conversation is helping to do for our audience right now is, there's an entire world of furniture. There are an entire world of items that are sold locally and are bulky that you could make money on flipping. But the thing that has most obvious synergy for someone flipping couches is to add furniture into their game, and probably vice versa. When we were talking about this previously, as a furniture flipper, you flipped a couple couches too. What has led you to have more of that focus on furniture versus couches?
Really, honestly, for me, the reason why I focus more on furniture now is because I've built the YouTube channel around it, and that's what my community is expecting. That's the niche that I've grown, is furniture flippers. So yes, I most definitely have the side hustlers in there that do this as a, part-time job, a side hustle, or even a full-time job, which is amazing. But then I do have a smaller section that is just interested in side hustle, period. And so I do dive a little bit into how I work auctions, because most of the time when I'm picking up couches, it's because I'm doing a bulk pickup of furniture at a house, and I'll see a couch or a chair that I think has potential or value. Obviously, I know I'm not going to do anything to that couch besides give it a good clean, take some nice pictures, and get it out the door. Like, I don't have any background in upholstery or fixing fabric or anything like that. I know nothing of that. So I am looking for something that does not need fixing, just needs to be cleaned, looks like it's still in style, and that with some, maybe some nice throw pillows or nice blanket staged on it, I can get that thing in and out the door, because I don't have a ton of space. And I think that's another thing that us flippers run into when we're dealing with larger pieces is, how are we going to store these things if they don't move? So we have to think about that aspect of it too a little bit. So for me, if I see something that's good, looks like it's good quality, just needs a clean and I know it's going to sell because it's in style, I will totally pick that up at an estate sale. And so I've done quite a few couches. I've done a ton of chairs. I actually did a whole YouTube video on how to flip chairs and the profit that you can make from that. Even though your profit margins are a little bit smaller on chairs, like I think in 1 week I flipped 5 or 6. That's a really good, that's a really good boon on return right there. So if those type of things make sense for me and I'm going there anyway to pick up furniture, I'm going to grab that couch.
Absolutely. It makes total sense. That I totally echo your sentiments on chairs. I don't know why couch flippers are not also flipping more chairs. We have been flipping a little bit out in New York City, and the chairs are extremely popular, especially like these designer brands.
Right.
Now, there's less of a moat, so it's a little more competitive and the profit margins are a little bit lower, and that's because they're easier to move.
Right. Yeah.
You're not, there's not as much of a hassle for someone to go pick up a chair, especially in New York City, right? You can just like kind of take it with you on the subway. And I think the market for designer chairs in New York City, it's mostly women. They're willing to shell out like $1,000 for nice looking chair, and men too, but just it tends to skew a little bit more towards women. And that's such an interesting subject. And it's great that you've done a YouTube video just on that subject. I'd love to link to it, somewhere in the distribution of this podcast. But could you give us like some of the key insights there? Like, what are you looking for? What are the profits that you can expect to make? Anything that can help people diversify their game.
Sure. So one of the main things, and this, it might be limited to Dallas, although I don't think it is because I've seen some flippers in some other areas have a lot of success with this. We are sort of in a stage right now where that mid-century furniture is really hot. So I'm looking for pieces that look mid-century or they look modern. That's, another thing. If they're modern looking, I look for that as well. Things with lots of patterns on them, I tend to stay away from. Again, I don't know how to reupholster things, and those are not big sellers as well. So if it's got a lot of pattern on it, that's probably something I'll pass on. Because the other thing I'm also thinking of is if I can get something that's more of a neutral color, a muted color, it's going to go in a lot more people's houses. Where if I get something that's really bright, floral, etc., that's a very small market of people that are actually going to have those types of colors in their home. And so I don't want to sit on that product. I want to stay away from that and get something that's a little more neutral that everybody can use. But in the last few years, we've saw a huge increase in what we call grandma chairs. And I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but they are the velvet rockers that had the skirting around the bottom of them that lots of people's grandmas had in their TV rooms. And so those are coming up a lot on Marketplace and on estate sales. And the really cool thing about those is that velvet crushed fabric is really in style right now, and it has been for a few years. So if you see anything with that on it, I would challenge you to pick it up and try to do something with it because it's actually in really high demand. So what we've been doing with those chairs, and I do have some footage of this in that video that hopefully we'll link, but you just take some basic pliers and rip that skirting around the bottom of the chair, and usually underneath it has really great mid-century legs. That's how these things were made. And nobody knew that these really great MCM legs were lurking underneath this grandma skirting that you couldn't see underneath. And so I've easily picked up 15 or 20 of those chairs now. And people don't realize how cool they actually are. It sounds funny to say, but I can get these at estate sales from around $3 to $5, and I sell them for about $150 on average. That's a huge profit increase when all I'm doing is cleaning it up and then ripping the skirting off of the bottom and taking a picture. So that takes me very little time, and it is most definitely worth that, time for investment in the long run when I can make that much off of a chair.
Especially if you're getting it for $3 and flipping it for $100, it's easy to move. And would you deliver a piece like that, or they come pick it up from you?
I do delivery. Like I said, I live in a big metroplex type of area, so I do charge for delivery. It is something that I offer, but most of the time I live in Dallas, Texas. A lot of people have trucks. They don't need me to deliver. So it is something I do offer, but I would say 90% of the time the client comes to my house to pick up things. And that's the nice thing about chairs is that you can fit that in your car usually. So it's really easy to move, takes up a very small space. If they are in your home, you can stack them. It's definitely something to look into because your investment and your time versus what you're getting in return, it's taking up a small space in your home. Everybody needs them. This is something everybody needs to have in a home. And so a lot of people are looking for chairs. They're a good investment on a good bang for the buck, I think, for sure.
Absolutely. I think it's really important as you think about scaling a flipping side hustle into a furniture business to have these types of auxiliary items because yes, you're going to make more money flipping a big sectional. Maybe you can make $1,000 on that, but it's going to take a lot more energy and it might move a little bit slower because it's a higher priced item. And so if you have more inventory available and it's lower effort, doesn't take up as much space, that can help when things get slow and it can just help with the variability of having a flipping business. So having a mix of furniture available to meet a variety of needs, probably really important. And the thing that you said earlier, which is also unappreciated, well, I appreciated it, but underappreciated by many people when thinking about what to stock up on, is knowing the trends, like the style and fashion trends for interior design, and making sure that you're catering to a broad audience or a specific audience. It could be either or, right? Like if you have a niche and a reputation for dealing in a very specific kind of furniture and people seek you out for that, great. Pick up those like unique, colorful pieces because that's what people are coming to you for.
Right.
But if you don't have that understanding, if you don't have that distribution, then understand what the majority of people want, right? And try to cater to those tastes. And right now what's hot is mid-century modern, the velvet crushed fabric grandma rocker you were just talking about.
Yeah.
And yeah, mid-century modern, that's huge. Neutral colors, something that's going to fit into the majority of the homes around you. And that's going to prevent the furniture that you're picking up from just sitting on the shelf too long, which is another really big consideration in trying to make a furniture business profitable. Things can't sit on the shelf too long. It's taking up space. Space is money. Time is money. And so, what we recommend for our flippers as barometer is, you should be turning over pieces in about a week. 2 weeks is slow. 2 weeks is slow. Week is, week or less is ideal. But that can be a lot of, time and energy. And so is flipping your full-time gig at this point?
Flipping became my full-time gig about 2 years ago. I left my medical job and was able to flip full-time. At this point, quite honestly, the content creator side has taken over. And so I would say that although at one point flipping was indeed my full-time job, it can be done. I have been fortunate enough now that the content side has taken over. So I don't have to flip as many pieces as I used to.
How many, in a given month, how many pieces would you say you're flipping now?
Now I flip about 3, which is really low for me. Back in the day, in 2020, when everything fell down and collapsed in our world, I was flipping about 5 to 6 pieces a week on average. And that is a lot. That's a lot of furniture when you're thinking what I am doing it with as far as painting it and things like that. I wasn't savvy at the time to think about the process of just taking it, giving it a good clean and restaging it. I wish I would have, because there is a market for that. And there was definitely a market for that in 2020. I was doing a lot of the hard work because that's where I was seeing the larger payoffs for me. So yeah, I flipped quite a bit back then. But like I said, that was pure out of necessity and fear, right? Is we were in that moment where the pedal just really hit the metal. So we had to go. But once that let off a little bit and my husband did get a new job, we went about a year without having employment where furniture was our income. And once he got a new job and there was stability there, then I was able to back off till about 5 pieces a month, 6 pieces a month. I was still taking some custom orders at that time, so that was a good portion of the income as well. But now through the content creation and growing the YouTube channels and other socials, working with brand partners and things like that, I'm able to scale back quite a bit. I would say 3 pieces is the max of what I normally have to flip in a month at this point.
And a lot of that is probably to fuel the content creation more so.
It is purely for content creation at this point. Yeah, I really don't do a lot of custom orders anymore. I'm just not able to because a lot of the times they're just not interesting enough to make a YouTube video out of. So I have to look for things that people really haven't seen before or something different, which is good because I do feel like in my market in Dallas, I have the ability to flip those things in and out of my house really easy. I totally understand what you're saying about like sitting on something for 2 weeks is too long. I totally feel the same. In the furniture, painted furniture world, I very much feel that because, like I said, we have limited space as well. So I just can't sit on things for a really long time. But it does help to know the trends and things like that in your area. I'm always sticking to that. That's a huge part of my YouTube channel and what I teach on there is knowing trends in your area. I stick within those margins, and that's why I'm able to sell so quickly in the Dallas area and still make a really good profit and not have to negotiate on my prices because I know what I'm providing is really on trend and what people are looking for in their houses right now.
One thing that's super interesting to me is the difference between the couch flipping markets and the furniture flipping markets. So, we got into this whole side hustle market around November 2022. So it's been about a year and a half for us.
Mm-hmm.
And we got into the side hustle market generally because, prior to this, we had a financial technology company where we're giving, say, loans to Uber drivers, DoorDash delivery drivers, and, Lyft drivers, gig workers. And, our idea is that like using their bank data and their employment data, we could offer them a better rate on these loans than like a payday lender or pawn shop lender, which is typically where they would turn for liquidity. But as we were looking at their bank accounts, we realized like they don't even have $500 in savings. So yes, I can save you a couple interest points, well, a lot of interest points on a loan, but like there's still a fundamental problem here in that you don't make enough money. And so we're like, how do we put money into people's pockets? So we started researching side hustles. That's how we came across furniture flipping, couch flipping. And the thing that was super interesting is that like there's just a line in the sand. The furniture flipping market is bigger, but it seems to consist of like mostly women who are doing it as a side hustle. And in contrast, couch flippers are mostly men. I want to say our customer base is something like 98% men, 2% women. A lot of these guys are quitting their jobs to do it full time. And for the furniture flippers, there is definitely this more creative dimension to what they're doing. Whereas the couch flippers are almost purely capitalists.
Yes. Yes.
They're almost purely capitalists. They don't want to spend more time dealing with the couch than they need to. But I've seen some videos of like furniture flippers, and it's an art form for them.
It's true. Yeah. So it's heavily dominated by women. That's for sure. But the men, we still love you. You're still there. 80% of my channel audience is women, 20% is men. So there's a good little block of interest there for the men. But I would agree with you. A lot of the women that I know that have gotten into this didn't get into it in the same way that I did. They are people who got into it because they're creative and they're looking for an outlet, and they, couldn't afford to furnish their own homes. And so they wanted things that looked different or looked nicer, but they couldn't afford to go out and buy those things. So they did it themselves, and they taught themselves this, and they had some sort of creativity like already in their bones per se. But the interesting thing that has always sort of I don't want to say set me apart because I'm not better or whatever. I'm just a little different in the side that when you come to this from necessity with no creative background, or so I thought, I'm more in that couch flipper mindset where everything is an investment. Everything is measured by how much space are you taking up and how quickly can you sell. I don't like to spend a lot of times on projects. I don't like to invest a lot on my furniture flips. I love the creatives, and there's ones that, blend paint and they add all this gold gilding and detail, and that is never going to be me because number one, that stuff costs a lot of money to add. That is less profit in my pocket at the end of the day. And that is purely what I do this for, is the profit. I love the creative outlet. I love that I've been able to discover that side of it, but that's not what drove this business. This was to put food on the table for my family. And like you said, stop living paycheck to paycheck. So there actually was money in the bank at the end of the day and not just 30 cents. Because we lived like that for a really long time until I discovered the side hustle. So yeah, it is interesting, the difference between the two. But I love that both women and men are finding that this is really lucrative. And no matter how you get into it, this is a great way to put a little extra cushion into your bank account. Get out of debt, pay off those credit cards, and find a little more breathing room financially.
That's super interesting. Like, yeah, and I've talked to actually quite a few furniture flippers because we were at a pivot point, right? We were like, do we get into the couch flipping market or do we get into the furniture flipping market? The furniture flipping market is bigger. There are definitely more furniture flippers out there. In fact, if you do like a Google search for furniture flipping, it'll return something like 200 million results. Whereas
Yeah,
if you
I
do the
believe it.
same search for couch flipping, it's something like 6 million.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So just that disparity in search results. And, you have, I think, 50,000 subscribers on YouTube.
63.
63? Okay. My apologies. My apologies.
That's
Uh,
okay.
and yeah, you should be proud of those numbers. So, but like, and I see quite a few furniture flipping influencers with huge followings.
Yes.
Whereas like probably the biggest couch flipping influencer has comparable audience, but on TikTok, which are those followers
Right.
are much easier to earn compared to growing like YouTube following. So there's definitely more of a market for furniture flipping content, at least, and like just like more furniture flippers out there. But we chose couch flippers because they were more capitalist, right? And with capitalists, we felt like we could, if we came up with something that created value for them, we could articulate that value and they appreciate it, we could sell it and we'd be able to make money. So that's sort of our initial motivation for working with the couch flippers. But, looking across the pond now, I think that there is opportunity for furniture flippers as well, particularly those that have more of this capitalist mindset. A lot of the challenges that I heard when talking to furniture flippers about a year ago is that people don't appreciate the value of their pieces. So like they don't understand the work that goes into creating like this furniture art. And so they would refer to it not as like refurbished furniture, but literally as furniture art, from the materials to the time and like, the chalk paint or what have you that I'm investing into this piece. When I list this on Facebook Marketplace and they see this dresser amidst other dressers, they don't understand the value that is invested into this invested into this dresser compared to everything else that's out there. And so it's hard for me to make money, like make legitimate money off of the side hustle because there's a discrepancy in actual and perceived value. But what you're elucidating so far on the pod is that you don't have to get so in the weeds of the artistry in order to find a way to make profit with furniture. There's like obviously a market out there of people that want to purchase used furniture, and maybe they don't care so much about the artistry. They want something that complements their home, and that if you know what to look for, you can actually open up some door. Like if you know what to look for, there's an opportunity for you to go after there. Now, because you have this different perspective going into the used furniture flipping game, how do you reconcile that with your audience who might be more interested in being the artist? Like, how do you feel like you should push them a little bit more into thinking about it in this like capitalist way, or should everyone like get out of it what they want?
I think everybody should get out of it what they want. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great question, but it goes back to, building your niche and what you're all about. Like I said, I love that. I love those creatives. And as you know, there's plenty of those YouTube channels out there where it's the creatives and they're blending and they're really creating a work of art. That's just not me. That's not how I came into this game. I am never going to claim that right brain, left brain. I come from analytics and data and number crunching. And so I just see business. I see the business side of it. Have I flipped pieces for my own home? Yeah, absolutely I have. But this is a business for me. I've always had that mindset. So I just don't, that's what my channel is all about. And there are plenty of people that watch my channel that just flip for their own homes. There's plenty of people that watch my channel that are never going to flip a piece of furniture. They just love to see the process of it. And that's fine. But I'm not the one that's going to do all the artsy things. I'm just not. I'm going to create the trends for my area. I'm going to talk about what is trending in my area so people know how to figure out the trends for themselves. And I'm going to talk about the listing and the selling process and how much profit I made, because people are nosy and they want to know that stuff. They want to know what that dresser sold for. They want to know how much you put into it versus what you got out. Because there are people that are really looking to get into these side hustles. And the more approachable that I can make it for them, the more I want to push that, because I, was so truly blessed by falling into this, being able to get my family to the situation that we're in now, to stop living paycheck to paycheck. And if I can deliver that for somebody else, that's amazing. And the way to do that is to be able to get pieces in low, sell them for high, and not sit on them for a long time. Because a lot of people are up against what I'm against. There's no profit margin in your budget at the end of the day. You may only have $5 or $6 to go pick up a grandma chair, use that $100 that you just gained off of it and buy a better piece of furniture and keep working. That's exactly what I had to do, because we didn't have any extra sitting around to go buy tons of furniture with. So it's one of those things where you're speaking to a specific audience. And like I said, there are plenty of artistry flippers on YouTube, but that when I got into it, that was not the mindset I was coming from. That is not what I have to share. I like the hustle side. Let's go make some money. And that's what I really talk about and promote on my channel.
I love that. I love making money.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Do you think that there's more demand for these furniture art pieces, or just catering to, sort of this mass market style that we were talking about before, like mid-century modern, sort of neutral colors? Because, some of these furniture art pieces can totally transform like an ordinary piece of furniture into something that's like art, but like how much demand is there for that art relative to something more commonplace?
Right.
Where do you see more value?
And that's true. And I can, tie that into couch flipping a little bit, in the sense that, how many times have you seen a really cool couch, a really neat shape? It's, bright red, a real statement piece for a room. And you may say, I really want that. That'll sell really well. I can get a whole lot of money for that. But how long are you going to sit on that red couch until the right person comes along that can actually fit that into their style and their decor? It's going to take you a while, right? I mean, I'm sure you would agree with that is just one of those niche sort of pieces. You've got a very small audience that's actually looking for something like that. So I love pieces like that too. And every room, I agree, needs some sort of pop of color or an interest piece in it. But I might not be the one that's providing that interest piece. You know what I'm saying? Like, I need to move things in and out. And you've got an audience that deals with couches that are big. They're taking up space. And so it may not be the best investment to go into something that's going to be super ornate or super particular to somebody's style if it means you're going to sit on it for a while. I really like things I need to get in and out. I'm going for neutrals, the grays, the whites, the blacks, the tans are coming back in style now. So I'm looking for those types of things. Do I love to find the bright yellow piece that's going to pop every once in a while? Yeah, I do. But if I'm looking at that, I'm thinking, do I have space for that? How long is it going to sit? If it's a chair or something like that, sure. Smaller, takes up less space, fine. If you're talking about an L-shaped sectional, probably not. We're probably going to pass on that for something that is a more neutral color that more people can fit into their homes.
Almost ironically, the more you labor on a piece, the less mass appeal it may have, and therefore the slower it may move. And also now you're investing more time and resources into that transformation, which means that no matter what you sell it for, your profit margin is probably going to be less. And so someone, like if you're at this fork in the road Do I transform this piece, refurbish it, and then put it out for sale? Or do I just, am I more selective up front about what I'm taking into my home and then minimizing the amount of effort that I put into it? I may actually make more money taking the easy route, which is this is the irony of furniture flipping in the furniture flipping market that I see currently. Why I think it's been like more difficult for furniture flippers to do what couch flippers have been doing, which is transform this from a side hustle into like a full-time business. Because what's happening right now in the United States and Canada is you have these guys that were, side hustling out of their garage 3-4 years ago that are building legitimate businesses with like a brick and mortar location and like 3,000 square feet of storage space and a showroom and a website. And, it's really like secondhand furniture 2.0, because there used to be quite a few of these secondhand furniture stores that were prevalent in, like, let's say the 80s or around that time period, and they just never modernized, right? And so you walk into some of these older secondhand furniture stores and it's dusty. There's a guy like out in the back, like one person like sort of monitoring the store, and there's not a whole lot of life and activity in these stores. But with the new business models, like the 2.0 version, they're internet forward, right? They're dealing with people. That's the big thing, is they're internet forward. They're image conscious. They're style and trend conscious as well. And there seems to be a huge demand for the services that they're offering and the products that they're offering as well. That's super interesting. I have a few more questions for you as we, get wrapped up here, but you've talked a lot about like where you'll find pieces, and it seems like there's quite a range there. Like you'll do everything from pick stuff up on Facebook Marketplace to going to an estate sale. So could you tell us a little bit more about where you're finding the best pieces for your business?
Yeah, I love estate sales. That is my number one go-to place. The reason why I like those the best and use them the most, quite honestly, is because I find that not as many people are frequenting them as they are Facebook Marketplace. Speaking to specifically what I do, there's a lot of dressers on Facebook Marketplace. If you're looking for furniture, that's the number one thing you're going to see is just regular dressers that haven't been refurbished. But they're normally selling from anywhere from, $80 up to $200. And that is too much for me. That's too much to start with. That makes my overhead way too high. And then, so I like to go onto, estate sale sites or bidding sites. A lot of estate sales, if you are not familiar with it, now they work in a way that you bid online and then you go pick up the pieces. So there's still a few, I don't want to say that there aren't any, because there are still a few that, you go to on the weekends and you walk into the house and you peruse everything. And that is still happening. But the majority of the ones are online and you're bidding on pieces and then you go on a Saturday or Sunday and go pick up your items. So there is a lot less people that are savvy to the fact that that's how it's done these days. And so the people I'm bidding against, except now I'm putting it out on your podcast, I'm paying lower for these items because I don't have a bunch of people looking through the listing. You know what I'm saying? Like you do on Facebook Marketplace. So I can get a dresser for a lot lower. I can pick up the grandma chairs for $3 or $5. You're not going to see those listed on Facebook for $3 and $5. They're going to be $50, they're going to be $60. And if I'm only selling them for $120, $150, that's much lower. It's still good. I don't want to complain about that, but that is, if I can get it for $3, that's a great return on investment right there. And so it's the same thing, the furniture in these places. You're bidding against a lot fewer people. You're not starting at an exorbitant price range. So you're able to pick up some things for a lot lesser. There's a ton of couches on there, lots of chairs, lots of that kind of stuff. So I really encourage, if you haven't started looking into that in your market, go Google estate sales. You will find these sites right away. Put in your zip code, narrow it down to, I only do 25 miles from outside my Dallas Metroplex, because if I do 50 or larger, I've got a large area where I am, right, to cover. So I just do 25 miles from my home and see what pops up. And I'm just constantly monitoring those sites. As being a furniture flipper, like I said, I'm looking for those other things. I am looking for the chairs. I am looking for couches. I do sell a lot of individual mirrors. I think another good tip for people that are listening, if you do this, is I can't tell you how many times I've had people come to my garage to pick up a dresser and see a mirror sitting there, or see the chair sitting there, or even see another dresser sitting there and say, what do you want for that piece? And sold multiple pieces that way that they didn't even know that they were coming to pick up. So it's nice if you can have some of those smaller things that don't take up a whole lot of space, that easy, just quick, clean, restage, get it out of the door. You'll make money on those things. Sure, it won't be hundreds of dollars, but an extra $50, an extra $75 gets you closer to buying that next big thing that you need to buy.
Quick little upsell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've talked to quite a few people on the podcast, mostly couch flippers, and estate sales are rarely talked about. People are rarely talking about buying furniture from estate sales. Well, there seems to be more traction around B stock, overstock type items where they'll buy like a pallet at a time, or like a truckload at a time. But estate sales are probably underutilized. And I know that there are a couple of couch flippers out there sourcing inventory from these estate sales, but I think for couches it's a little bit drier on the estate sale front. But for other types of furniture, it's probably quite lucrative, as you're suggesting. Now, that's how you source primarily, and of course you're still buying on Facebook Marketplace as well. In terms of selling, how important is it for you to have like your own brand and your own audience that you're distributing to versus listing directly onto Facebook Marketplace?
I think it's a good idea to do both. I would encourage, obviously I have a business Facebook page that I've had from the jump. That is a good amount of how I've built my Dallas clientele for sure. Like they know what kind of, so even more specific, like I've really gotten into this niche of where I really love to flip 80s furniture. If you watch my channel, you'll see me reinvent a lot of 80s furniture. So people that like that style search me out in the Dallas area, because 80s furniture, and this is a little insider tip for the couch flippers, but 80s furniture turns into MCM type furniture really easily. And since that's what's hot right now, that's what I search for. And I can find a piece of MCM furniture, but I'm going to pay top dollar for it before I even lay my hands on it. And so to me, that's not normally a good investment. So I built that Facebook, the Lemons to Lemonade Furniture Facebook page in the very beginning, just showcasing my work. I used to do some reels in the beginning, just sort of showing, or I don't even know if there was reels, but some sort of stories, showing the process a little bit. People like to see that. But I built my following just by having that business Facebook page. And yes, I do still list on Marketplace, but I would always link them back to, in the description on Marketplace at the bottom, it says you can visit my other listings here. So I'm looking to upsell and I'm looking to grow my following on that business page so that they know when they need something else, when they're refurnishing the next thing, when they're buying a couch for their, daughter's new house, whatever it may be, and they've gotten a high quality piece from you in the past, they're going to go look on that page and see what you have in inventory. That has happened a lot to me. So always take the few minutes it takes to start that business page on Facebook and then consistently link it to your ad that you're putting on Facebook Marketplace, and you will watch that grow if you're putting out there a good product for somebody.
I've talked about something similar on the podcast before, but when you're flipping items, you get a cheat code in growing a business, which is distribution. You get free distribution on Facebook Marketplace. Most of the time, if you're selling to consumers, you don't have that luxury. So imagine I started a gummy worm brand. I want to sell gummy worms to consumers. The question that I probably am not thinking about is like, well, how am I going to sell it to consumers? It's a very difficult process. Do I run ads online and I'm going to ship like little packets of gummy worms to people across the nation? Can I telemarket to them? I'm going to call people's houses. Hey, do you want gummy worms? In reality, I probably have to get into like grocery stores and like retailers and, brick and mortar locations, but they have order requirements. So having distribution to consumers for, like consumer products is a very difficult thing that takes time and money usually. Whereas with couch flipping or furniture flipping, you get to just kind of put it on Facebook Marketplace and get connected to an audience of people that are interested in what you have to sell. But on the flip side, you're also then reliant on Facebook Marketplace for that audience, for that distribution. And over time, you should be taking advantage of this free distribution and building your own audience. if you think about it, this is exactly how Airbnb got started. They used to post their listings on Craigslist, and then over time, they siphoned off users from Craigslist onto their platform, creating the initial demand for Airbnb. So if Airbnb can do it, you could probably do it for your furniture business as well on Facebook Marketplace. Kara, we're about at the hour here today. I thank you so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge with our flippers. I think they're going to get a lot out of this. Anyone who's been thinking about how to up level their game, add a little bit of a new dimension to it, stand out from the crowd, they're going to get a ton of insight out of our conversation today. And so really appreciate you hopping on and sharing that knowledge.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope it was insightful, and yeah, let's just keep hustling. This is doable. This is doable for 99% of people. So it is really worth getting into in some way, shape, and form. People are buying, people are decorating their homes. There's a real market for what we do. So it's real interesting to look into and, be on the business side of that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how this market continues to develop, because it's one of my theories that, the couch flippers are going to start flipping more furniture in the future. So we'll see if that happens.
They definitely should.
Awesome.
Thank you.